not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the August 22nd edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Again, good morning and thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in for today's program. We would like for you to join the program, and all you have to do is call this number, which is 516-453-9921. And if you have a question briefly or a comment briefly, just press the number 1 button, and a hand will come up, and that will let me know that you are in line. Make sure you give the call screener your name. If you happen to be a first-time caller or know someone who wants to contact the show as a first-time caller, please have them call in with the same number, but give the call screener your name and tell the call screener that you are a first-time caller, and you will be put in line so that you will be heard. Again, please be brief in that so that we can get as many calls in that we can. You can also get into the chat room, and all you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You make sure that you click on where it says programs. And when you do that, then you want to go to the show menu, and the show is the Produce Justice Show. You get that, you click on that, and the chat room is available in there, and you can get in to the chat room, and there's some good and lively conversations in there. I would caution you, though, do not use the chat room to ask me a question, to ask Mr. Fuller. Most of you have really done a good job with that. Don't do that. That is strictly for the chat. However, there are occasions where I will select something that's being said, maybe a hot topic, and that I will forward a question to Mr. Fuller, and then Mr. Fuller will answer that. The third way that you can ask your question is on my Gmail. All you have to do is go to the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Now, when you do that, please, ma'am, please, sir, do not write me a long letter because I will not be able to read it on account of the time that we have on the radio. We just don't have enough time to go through all that. So make it brief and short so that Mr. Fuller can understand and answer your question, and he will do that. So make sure that you do that. That is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Now, if you do that today, it will not be read today. However, it will go into, I won't say a pile, but it will be stored, and when we don't have as many calls or the call volume is low, then one would be selected, and it could be read, and then Mr. Fuller will answer that, and I will give you a symbol to let you know that it's done like that, and you can go from there. Okay, I think that is it. I hear some noise in the background. That's not me, but we'll go on with that. Okay. Let me go on with this right here. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, still learning. Good sound, strong voice this morning. Okay, people, we have a segment that we call the Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, to start off today's program, what are the thoughts or expressions on your mind this day being the 22nd of August, 2023?
Well, I was thinking a couple of days ago that it seems like
a lot of arguments coming up about CRT and all this type of thing, and it looks like it's going to breed a lot of conflict, particularly by the time in the northwestern hemisphere, when you have increased school activities, and people will be shut in also, and probably there will be a lot of on their days off. That includes students. A lot of talk back and forth about the race issue, and the usual talk about how to go about handling it and how not to go about handling it, and who's to blame for this and who's to blame for that. And it seems like that's going to be a warm-up type thing, right in particular in what we call the school season for young people, colleges, elementary schools, etc. Plus, on the radio and on programs like this, podcasts, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and tempers are going to flare. I can kind of see that coming. It may not happen, but I see that coming, that people are going to be kind of on edge, and a lot of people are just going to be thoroughly disgusted, and it's going to be a lot of name calling and a lot of back and forth. I think that needs to be codified, and so that we have what you might call civil discourse, or people are able to just sit down and just talk. And the procedure, according to the code, we're talking about race. The best way to talk about it is just simple questions and answers, and try to steer away in a conversation about race or racism or counter-racism. Get away from the personalities and making the conversations personal to the extent that you have increased conflict. Try to minimize the conflict, particularly, and a lot of white people are getting to the place they don't want to talk about it at all. But since you're going to have to engage them in the talks at some point, and the earlier the better, because that way you can get things solved. So just stay away from the name calling and actually just making accusations. Just ask questions. And you have to know what questions to ask, and that's what codification is all about. That's the approach, the codified approach. Questions and answers. Why? Because questions and answers has been proven to get things done in the most efficient manner. Just questions and answers. Every question has an answer. Just find out what the answer is, and then come up with the best possible answer if you're trying to solve a problem that will help solve the problem. But just stay in the question and answer lane. And so one question that I have thought about that people can use in their conversations is, and this is when you're talking to white people or black people, why haven't you, at some point, if you're at meetings or anything like that, or in a classroom, why haven't you, and you can ask the professors this, and the professors can ask the same question back to the students and people in any meeting. all the meetings that are going to be had, like here in the month of August, is going to be a commemoration, you might say, as an example, the Martin Luther King Commemoration March here in Washington, D.C. That's what I understand is going to happen. And so there will be branch-off meetings from this. And this question should be asked of everybody who has anything to say about race, racism, or counter-racism. That's in classrooms, and these can be asked forever, all through the winter, all through the fall. Why haven't you, meaning whomever you're talking to, solved the race problem? Because a lot of people have a whole ton of opinions about how it should be done and who's doing what, who should stop doing what, and who should sit down and close their mouths and don't say nothing because they don't know what they're talking about. It's going to be a lot of that. Well, you can cut through all of that just simply by asking everybody who takes the floor or who wants to verbally participate on podcasts and everything else. Why haven't you, whomever you are, solved the race problem? That's the question. Everybody's talking at everybody. Well, just quiet everybody down, and just one by one, if there's 10 people in a room or in a chat room, why haven't you, sir or ma'am, solved the race problem? You seem to have a lot to say. So why haven't you solved the race problem? Now, that's not accusing anybody of anything. That's the codified way. Questions and answers, because that's the most efficient way to get where you need to be going. Questions and answers. So that is a question, not a so-called loaded question. It's a question that makes sense, particularly if a person wants to do a whole lot of talking, want to take the floor and tell everybody else to shut up and listen to me. So why haven't you, Neely, you're talking on this podcast now, why haven't you, Neely Jr., solved the race problem? So I thought about that since I'm making this suggestion. And so I want to come up with the correct answer. There's two reasons. One or the other or both. Two reasons or one. An answer to it. There's a reason why Neely has not solved the race problem. And what is the answer? Not only for Neely Fuller, according to logic, but for everybody. And the answer is, the codified answer, not enough will and or not enough skill. I'm going to repeat that. Why the race problem has not been solved. And this applies to everybody on the planet, including so-called experts on racism. The problem hasn't been solved, so what's the reason? And the reason, according to the evidence, not enough will. Talking about wants now, something that you want to do. Not enough of it. And or not enough skill. That's got to be the answer if you're going to be scientific. And everything in codified science, counter-racist science, should be scientific. It's not personal. It's business. That's it.
Okay. All righty. 516-453-9921 is the number to get in contact with the show. Remember to press the number 1 button if you have a question or comment that you would have Mr. Neely Fuller to write. Good morning, Triple F. Oh, okay. Good morning, Rita. Okay. All righty. I'm very happy to hear that. All right. We have a new caller. I'm going to get to him in a moment here. Let me go to Delbert, since you were the first one to call in. Man, I'm very happy to hear AAA call in. Okay, Delbert, are you ready? Delbert in Texas. Delbert, ready? Here we go. Press the button, and there you go. Delbert, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I have a question out of the Word Guide pertaining to race buffering, and I'd like to know what would be the difference between race buffering and racial showcasing.
Well, the differences should be explained. I mean, they're kind of in length, too. And you should understand, I don't know about my writing of it right now. I'm not looking at the pages, but I think it's kind of should be self-explanatory. You know, you first look up what racial showcasing is, and then you say, what's the other term?
Race buffering.
And race buffering. And you just see the difference. You should pick it up. You might have to read it over and over again and see if there is a difference. I hadn't looked at it within that context, but you can just take it literally for what it is. They're just descriptions of activities, and you can just think about, you know, look at one, the definition of racial buffering, and then look at the definition or the explanation for racial showcasing, and that would be the codified procedure, and see if you see a difference, and then use the differences accordingly. It's all up to the reader. The words themselves are just tools for trying to get a job done. And so you just look at the differences. If there are any differences, you may not perceive any differences, so you use them to mean the same thing if you explain to the person who is listening to you, if you're going to talk about it, what you perceive the differences to be. And that applies to anything in counter-racist codification. You use the words and the terms the way that you think will get the best, correct results.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
that's what I would have to do right now, and I wrote it. But right now, I would have to look and see, did I make a difference? And what it is I'm trying to do. That's all it is. That's all the language has to do with anything. What is it you're trying to do? And so when you converse with somebody on anything that has to do with codification, you just make it clear what it is you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
With any words. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Delbert, from Texas. You keep hanging in there, and we'll go from there. All righty. Hang on there. Wait a minute. There we go. Let me do this. Let's go right here. 888. Rita 888. You are there. Good morning, and welcome to the program. What is your question for Mr. Fuller? Okay. Huh. Are you on here? Nope. Okay, that's not good. Oh, boy, I hope we don't run into what we ran into last week. Okay. I tried to get you in here, but we'll go from there. Okay. Let's go. Yeah, I can't hear. Yeah, I'm speaking with you. I can hear you, but we'll try again. Let me go to the brother from Wichita, Kansas, Chad. Get ready. Well, we see what's going on here. Get ready, Chad. Here we go. Chad, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
On this top of the morning, and peace and blessings from Wichita, Kansas. I would like to start my question. Actually, I'm going to change my question listening to Mr. Fuller's thoughts this morning. You know, a friend of mine and I was talking just last night about the critical race theory. And I was stating to him that I feel it's equally as important to bring up us at least getting the IOU tax from every product produced and sold from the 5-state charter or the 5 states that directly benefited from slavery, if we bring up critical race theory. Because it seems like no matter how we present it, we're not going to be able to talk about reparations at the table. So I want to know how you feel about that, as if, like, we should critically bring up that topic of our 5-state charter, since we won't get autonomy or we won't be able to bring up reparations at the table. At least the states that benefited directly from slavery, we get an IOU tax that's owed to us off every product produced and sold, like the Jews do with the U and the K on the food products.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well, the people who came up with the term critical race theory are the people who should explain what the term means and what it doesn't mean. And I can't do that because I didn't invent the term. So I use the word compensation if it comes to that. And I say that we need, but I also use the word repair, but that's not the word that I emphasize. I say compensation. But reparations, if you're talking about the race problem, I don't even put it within the context of what they call chattel slavery. I say that we need to repair the entire system of government everywhere on the planet where people get what? Justice. And what is justice according to the compensatory code? It is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's the first part. And number 2, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Everything constructive, nothing that's non-constructive. That should be the goal. In all of those areas of activity, everywhere on the planet, that applies to people on the planet, classified as white and non-white, everywhere, 24/7. That's what I'm talking about repair work. I'm talking about repairing the entire world system. It needs repairing. Everything that everybody is doing, because it's all messed up. Every bit of it. You can't take one part of it and try to straighten that out. You got to straighten it out all. Because one part, like a body politic, that's what they call it, one part affects the other part.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a nail in your foot, you're going to have a nail in everything that you do. Because that one thing has got to be corrected. You're hopping around trying to do this and do that. You're not made for that. The nail has to come out of the foot. And if you've got a nail in your arm, too, and nails here and nails there and tacks here and tacks there, I mean, just trying to patchwork up repair work can mean that, but it's best to do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so not even, I don't even look at this business about compensation or reparations the way that most people do. We've kind of trained just work and do patchwork. Codification is about doing it all. People need housing, they need education, they need transportation, they need health care. You say, well, that's a huge project. See to it that everybody gets it. Well, for how long? As long as is needed. How about that? You don't have any deadline where everybody lines up and get a check for their health care. You're not repairing anything. I mean, you're not doing anything. You're just going through some type of exercise. That's the codified approach. I mean, we got to think big and not think big just to look like we're gouging or something or trying to rip somebody off. That's what's been done. We want to stop that.
We want to stop it.
Just take care of people's needs. That's all. That's what we. What do you mean by repair work? Whatever people need. Well, how long is as long as it takes? How about that? Think on that level. Well, that might take 50, 75 years. Take as long as it takes, day by day, minute by minute, to take care of what people need. Is that hard to understand? Yeah, well, that's a big order. Everybody's going to really have to get busy. Well, then get busy. See, that's the codified approach. And that's the only way that I can answer. Because, see, this is completely different from what everybody's talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
When we're talking about compensatory codification, that's what we're talking about. We're thinking on a different level altogether. Why? Because it takes that. You're talking about a huge project, something that's never been seen before, even heard of.
All righty, the codified approach. Thank you, Chad, from Wichita and what is it, Weechakra country? Don't be a stranger. All righty, let me do this. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Contact number to get into the show, you know that, but for those new, 516-453-9921. You have a question or a brief comment, please make it brief, ma'am or sir. You know that number again, 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button. And be sure also to give your name to the call screener so that I can properly give you an introduction as those who are on the line. Yes, very, very good. Okay, all the books are in, by the way. All you have to do is go to producejustice.com. Sometime during the program, I will have Mr. Fuller speak about the books, but right now we're going to try to get as many calls as we can in the line. I think that is all that I have to do. Oh, yeah, first-time callers, don't forget, call in, give the call screener your name so that I can get you up there and you will be heard. Okay, let me see here. All right, let me try it again. Okay, Rita, I think I'm going to try you. Here we go. Okay, Rita, can you hear me? Okay, there's something wrong again. I tapped you again. Let me see. Nope. Okay, I don't know what's going on, 888, but it didn't clue you in. But we'll see what's happening with that. All righty, let's go down to Houston, where we have some problems down there, but not one from this gentleman right here. Cleo, get ready. You getting ready to have an introduction, brother. Here we go. Cleo from Houston, you are on. Do your thing.
Good morning, everyone. Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. My sincere appreciation, as always, to my man, Mr. Bobby, Robert, Sharon, Moonpie, the entire CRCS crew. Thank you for your ongoing partnership with Mr. NFJ in this very important life work. I want to say last week, I missed y'all, man. I won't say I love y'all, man, because we know love, according to the code, doesn't exist, because justice doesn't exist. But I will say I care about y'all, man. I want to start this morning with a very quick question for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, given the recent events of the Montgomery, Alabama brawl, do you perceive that there will be any blatant racist white supremacy backlash as a result of that event?
I don't know. See, that's why we need a code. And white people should understand what the compensatory code is with black people. I mean, we need clarity. So if we don't get clarity about what? About what white people want and don't want, and clarity about what black people want and don't want, if black people can figure out what they want. See, we have to be very focused about that when we say we want something, and the white people are saying, well, you're all over the place talking about what you want, reparations, you want this, you want that. Can somebody come up with some kind of package? I mean, that we can sit down and talk about it without anybody shouting and name calling and all of that. I mean, that's not getting anybody anywhere, and it's making white people disgusted and making black people mad, and it seems like nothing is getting done. And they're correct about this. So, but you can still ask, you can start the procedure, and here again, I'm going to say it, I'm going to keep saying it, all problems are solved according to the code and according to science, the science of the universe. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So you go to page 171, and if you're talking about what's in the textbook for victims of racism, you've got 171, 172, and it's all kind of modifications based on those 4 questions that are on those 2 pages. And it starts with, what do I want to do? Every person, talking about black people now, and a black person, because the textbook is for non-white people, people of color. So you turn to that. What do I want to do? Ask yourself that every day. You can start with that. Start with kindergarten. What do I want to do? That's number 1. Why do I want to do it? Whatever it is I want to do. You should know what you want to do or have some idea. So what do I want to do? That's number 1. Number 2, why do I want to do it? This thing that I want to do. Number 3, how do I plan to do it? That's really getting in high sand, you might say, quicksand, by the time you get to number 3. When you start talking to black people about a plan, now that's something we're not used to. We're not used to having any plan for anything. And it's understandable because the white supremacists make plans for black people, always have, since the beginning of white supremacy. So when you have to plan for yourself, that's something that's kind of strange territory to black people all over the world. We usually don't have a plan. Because under the system of white supremacy, we say, well, boss man takes care of the plans. He makes all the plans for me and him. So, if you're talking about planning, I got to go and ask him, what's our plan? Or what's his plan for me? Because I ain't got one of my own. And so it's understandable that we would think like that. but we have to have a plan. So things kind of slow down when we get to that third question. What's our plan to do what we want to do once we figure out what we want to do in the first place? And then the fourth question is a really wrap-up question, and that is, what do you expect the constructive result to be?
Yes.
And when black people talk to white people or talk to each other or talk to anybody, those four questions should be on the table everywhere. And everybody should answer those four questions without exception. You can't leave anybody out. What do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? How do I plan to do it? And what do I expect the constructive result to be? Those four questions and the answers to those four questions will always, always take everybody right where they should be. The answers to those four questions. It won't take everybody where they figured on their head to go. It won't satisfy everybody, but it'll take everybody right where they need to be.
Okay.
And that's a guarantee.
Yeah,
anytime you get lost, if you can't figure out nothing else in the textbook, deal with those four questions. And that's at any meeting, any college, on any job. Those four questions should be on the table in every circumstance, without fail.
All righty. Let me address this quickly. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And thank you for the call. Listen, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the usual suspects, but I just received a Gmail from Mr. Lacey saying that, Mr. Bobby, I attempted to call in this morning, and there was a recording stating that I would be charged come on here, wait a minute. That I would be charged 1 cent per minute to listen in. Please help me if you can and what's happening. I have no idea if that's going on. I don't think that that's true, but I'll have Robert look into that and see what's going on, and he'll relay that to me. And then, 888 Rita, I've worked it out with Robert, so if you call in and make sure, and this is for everybody, please, if you have a question, give your name to the call screener, because when you call in and you want to say something, I receive a hand indicating that you have a question. Please do that so that we can go right through. Those who have been with Mr. Fuller and myself are very aware that there are many people who try to sabotage this program. I think they're called the usual suspects. Yeah, you keep listening to the show, and we'll find out. Anyway, Rita, that's what you do. Just go call in, and then they'll do that for you. In the meantime, and in between time, get ready for the holler, everybody. Get ready for the holler. You know what that means. When I say holler, I'm talking about the dollar. Yeah, from New York. Okay, name so nice they had to name it twice. Dollar bill. Well, I think we got you on here, brother. What's up, man?
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes,
oh,
sir.
Man, it's a beautiful day in here in New York. I don't want to take up too much of time because Mr. Fuller has to drop some more bombs today. So I was listening this morning, Mr. Fuller, and I missed you guys last week also. Cleo stole all my thunder on that. But I just wanted to say, I'm getting ready to go back to work to the students soon. I got to get back into school, and I won't be able to participate live on the Tuesdays like I usually do now. I did this summer. But I wanted to ask you about what you said this morning. And what you said was to ask that question, why haven't you solved the race problem? And then you gave the reasons of lack of will and skill. So my question would have been to a person who would have said that to me, I would have said, well, why didn't you lose those 4 questions you asked yourself that you want me to ask myself? Or why don't you have will and skill? And why couldn't you buy somebody or pay somebody who had the will and skill? So, or like you said, a plan. Why didn't you restructure your plan to solve the system of racism? So those are my questions this morning. Have a great day, gentlemen. And, I hope they're not charging me $1 a minute or $1 a second, but I would pay it for Mr. Fuller.
Okay. All right, Mr. Fuller, you have a comment on that?
Well, you just keep asking questions. See, that's a procedure. Black people and many people, I guess, when people are trying to evade solving problems, one of the first things they do is see to it that people don't ask enough questions to solve the problem. Let's put it in simple terms. Because you're going to solve a problem if you keep asking enough questions. That's the key. I mean, sometimes people say, well, that's a crazy question and whatnot. If it's a so-called crazy question, if you want to put it in that context, that will come to the surface. It'll do it on its own, if it's such a thing as a crazy question. Every question has an answer, and you just keep going in that direction. You can't. There's no such thing as an incorrect question. I'll put it that way.
Yes, sir.
It's incorrect answers. But there's no such thing as an incorrect question. Every question has an answer. And if the answer is, I don't know, then the next question is there any way to find out? That's the next logical procedure. Do I have to know? Is there anything I should know? You might have 1,000 questions about that question. But questions and answers, as any inventor will tell you, as any person that came up with a new type of computer, says the way I invented this is I kept asking questions until I got answers. And so I invented a computer just by questions and answers. Just keep on keeping on. Next question, next answer, next question, next answer. Well, sometimes people say, too many questions. No such thing as that.
No
and
such
if it
thing.
is such a thing as that, you ask that question. How many questions are too many? Has anybody ever answered that? What's the answer to that? How many questions are too many? And it's an answer somewhere. Depends on what you're talking about. Maybe. Alrighty. So you can raise a question about that. That's on the board. How many questions are too many?
Alrighty.
And somebody from the back of the room says, depends on what you're talking about. And then somebody from the other side of the room says, until you get an answer. You ain't got too many questions until you get the answers to the questions. And once you get the answer, anything over that is too many.
Okay.
And somebody on the other side of the room said, is that necessarily so? That's another question. But you just keep on doing it. You will be an inventor. You will become what they call smart, because you have a lot of questions, millions of them that you are seeking answers to. That's the codified procedure.
Yes, sir. All right, Dollar with the holler. Thank you so much for your call, and I really appreciate that. By the way, Robert just spoke to me. There is no charge for calling into the phone, especially a penny. I don't know where that came from, but no, there's no charge. He did say that you might want to check with your phone carrier, Mr. Lacey, to see if what's going on. But no, this is you don't have to
like
do that.
The usual suspects.
Yep. You're right. That's what many people on the chat are saying. The usual suspects are at play. Let me try this again. Rita, I don't see your hand up, and I'm going to try it one more time, and then we're going to move on. Let's see if I can get you in here. Nope. Now the mic will not move. Okay, usual suspects are at play again. I wonder why. Yeah, just Gmail me your question, and we will go from there. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's see here. This comes from, let's see, who is this? Media Hatch says this. Today is just a quick segue question for Mr. Fuller. It says, Mr. Fuller, when a confirmed racist/supremacist openly states that they intend to, quote, have fun, end of quote, by, quote, making fun of, I just put it like this, N, capital N with S on the end, end of quote, especially in the area of entertainment, and continues to do so on a regular and public basis, Mr. Fuller, what would be your codified response to this kind of activity, if any at all?
Well, it gets to the 4 questions again, what do they intend to do? See, it has to do with those wants. The word want, W-A-N-T. So, a suspected white supremacist can be suspected of practicing white supremacy. And what it is, they're going to make jokes about the whole situation, I guess. I guess that's what I heard, that's the plan. What do I want to do? I want to make a joke out of the whole race issue, solving it, make a joke out of that. And why do I want to do it? Because I'm a racist, and that's my technique for doing it. And how do you plan to do it? Well, they're going to plan to do it by making jokes. And what do they expect the constructive result to be? Now, they can answer that. But what if it's a racist who's doing it, and it involves non-white people, which is how you identify a person who is a racist, then you can expect them to do something that's non-constructive. That's the answer to that 4 question. What do you expect the constructive result to be? Well, I don't expect the result to be constructive for non-white people. Because as a white supremacist, that's what I intend to do things that are non-constructive and see to it that they're always doing things that are non-constructive as long as they are breathing on my planet. And so they're just announcing something that they're going to do, whether they're telling the truth or not. They're giving you their plan. Mm-hmm. So you take them at their word, and you also say that they probably got some other plans too. And even what they're telling me that they're going to do might be part of the plan. So they might not be planning to do what they say they're going to do. They're going to do something else. But they'll have me working on that or looking out for it when they're really planning something else. Because the white supremacists always got 5 or 6 plans behind their one plan. Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay. All righty. Okay, update. Lacey just wrote back saying that he is speaking with the customer service or whoever his carrier is now, and he's being told that the radio station is charging the phone company now, and they are passing it on because I know that we don't know anything about that here, what we're doing, so I don't know what's going on. As Mr. Fuller stated, it sounds like the usual suspects could be in play. Notice, could be in play. Something is going on. But anyway, that's the latest on that. All right, let's go here. Okay, 888. They said you were in the queue, but I'm looking at it. I don't see your hand up. Let's see here. We'll try it again and see. It says you're in the queue, so let's see here. Thank you, Aaron from Cleveland calling. Nope, I don't see you. Well, still can't get it. Gmail me your question, 888. That's what we'll do. Okay, Toussaint, Brooklyn, in the house. Represent Crown Street, where my aunt used to live. All right, Toussaint, you're on. Go ahead, do it.
All righty. 2 quick questions, if that's all right. Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, quickly, though. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Mr. Fuller, would having more police officers be counter-racist or be beneficial for black people? More black police officers?
I can't say, but so far we have black law enforcement officers, and some of them, it's been my experience, the ones I have in the last, I'll say, 20 years, maybe a little bit longer, certainly not going back to the 1950s. Now, it was a different story. That's been my experience with black police officers. We had one law enforcement officer who was extremely brutal. I mean, in fact, quite a few of them. And then
black guy?
Oh, sure. We had one who couldn't even read and write, not to say anything about what the laws were. And his way of handling everything was to take out that .44 single-action revolver and start shooting. Anytime he got in a situation where he had to do some thinking, I mean, I won't call his name. I mean, but he was that way. If he got to a crowd of people and he got kind of frustrated with what they were doing, some of them drinking, like, dance halls and things like that, his whole remedy for that was just take out his gun and not shoot up in the air. He'd start shooting people. Just anybody who, break this up. You got fights going on all over the place, which we usually had on Saturday night, black people taking out their frustrations and going to a dance hall. Every Saturday night you can expect a fight, or 2 or 3 or 4, even back then, more so than even now. But the difference was they were fights for beer bottles and things like that. But this law enforcement officer, wearing overalls, he was a farmer by trade. He just came and monitored dance halls on Saturday night. But people would say, almost routinely, predictions, "Oh, here he comes. Everybody better start running." Because if he gets frustrated in 2 minutes or less. He's just going to start opening fire. That's the way you handle everything. And people would start running. They would start running down the fire escapes and everything, trying to get out of the dance hall or whatever the occasion would be. And so in answer to the question, you've always had officers, white and non-white, who would be trying to do the correct thing.
Okay.
And you had those that didn't. But that's not where the problem is, according to the code. The problem is the entire system. You've got to get rid of the system of racism.
Yes.
Or you can cry about it and moan about it and demonstrate about it, and that'll go on forever. You're not going to straighten out that so-called police problem by patchwork. You have to have an entire different system all together. But if you just want to do some patchwork, the first patchwork is you got to make a strict law about that firearm coming out of the holster.
Okay.
Now, that's a very simple thing to do. I mean, the firearm comes out of the holster only under these 4 conditions or 3 conditions and whatnot. No other way. Now, if you don't want to be on the law enforcement officer, as a law enforcement officer, don't get on the force. Because that firearm does not leave that holster except in case of, and you have your list of when it comes out.
Okay.
So, you know, and a lot of officers might say, well, depending on how strict the list is, oh, well, man, you're making me vulnerable and whatnot. Well, the law might be that, hey, if you, first of all, you don't approach nobody and they show any signs of hostility, and if they show any signs of hostility, you back off and call for backup. So, well, we'll be calling back off and calling for backup all night long for everything. But you can do that because my suggestion, and this is a codified suggestion, is that if you're really serious, taking into account how everything is here in the year 2023, backing off is your best option when there's any sign of hostility. Any. Back off, wait for backup, because, see, this backup, it's going to cost money, but it's better than causing a riot and causing a whole bunch of breakdown and demonstrations and Black Lives Matter and all like that. You can just do that just simply by saying, hey, wear the person down. That's it.
Okay.
I mean, that person ain't going nowhere if you got them bottled in. I mean, just encircle them and sit there and eat sandwiches. And after a while, they'll run out of food. All right?
Okay. What's your second question, very quickly, because we're up against an hour. What is your second question, quickly, Toussaint? Toussaint? Once, twice, Toussaint,
yes,
are you there?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's your second question, quickly? Go ahead.
All righty. My second question is, Mr. Fuller, there's a theme of NBA players and athletes in general calling themselves dogs in front of a majority white viewing audience, where they say that that athlete or that black male has a dog in them, and that's supposed to be a reference to, I guess, their aggression or their toughness. And I wanted to ask you, Mr. Fuller, how do you process that black men or black people being called dogs for the sports that they play in a good way? It's supposed to be a compliment in front of a white audience.
All right. Mr. Fuller?
We need a code. That's all. That's why I wrote one. A suggestion for the infancy of one. We need a way to talk about everything, a scientific way of doing everything. Millions of things that we say and do. We do it so that we get the best results. That's the key. Does this produce the best results, the most constructive? These are the scientific codified words. Those 2 words, constructive results. Keep raising those questions in every move that you make and everything that you say. Is this the most constructive thing that can ever be said by anybody? That's how you tailor your language every day. Even if you have to sit down and think about it, just tell people, I have to sit down and think about this, and try to come up with a way of talking in every situation, like we're doing now, where you come up with the most constructive results.
Okay.
And the person says, well, it's taking you too long to get back to what I asked you about. You say, well, I have to take as long as it takes to get the most constructive results, sir. Oh, man.
Correct.
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to say anything that's going to lead to anything other than the most constructive results. That's our code. Our meaning everybody who wants to adopt it, who likes constructive results. And I do, sir or ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to learn how to talk. We need a whole nother way of talking, another way of looking at the world. We need brand new everything. We can't keep going on with what we traditional ghetto stuff.
Okay.
That's great for a ghetto, but it hasn't paid off.
Okay.
That type of thinking, that type of speaking, that type of acting. It hasn't paid off. All it's done is generate a whole bunch of animosity and outer-minded thinking. Stop praising ghetto ideology, as you might say.
Mm-hmm.
Stop praising it. It hasn't worked. We need a new way of looking at everything. And that's what compensatory code means. We need to compensate for all this raggedy thinking that we have and raggedy speaking. Just raggedy. Tacky, trashy, terroristic. That's what we've gotten out of it.
All righty. That concludes the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code show. We're a little bit over, but we thank you for listening. For those who have to go, hopefully we'll be better next week. Maybe work out all the stuff that the usual suspects try to do. If you are going to stay for the second hour, good, because we do have one, the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code show. Thank you for those that have to go. And for those who are going to stay, hey, we'll be right back in about 7 seconds from now. Alrighty, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And thank you for listening. Call-in number, you know what it is. But for those new, 516-453-9921. You have a quick question or comment, just push the number 1 button and you'll get in line along with the rest of the people who are already on hold. And we'll try and make sure that we get you in. Okay, if you are a first-time caller, call the same number, but be sure to tell the call screener or the person who answered the phone, give them your name so that I can properly give you an introduction, and you will be heard on that. You can also be part of the chatters in the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you click on where it says programs. You do the program thing, and then you'll come up with the shows. You want to get shows, and you want to get the Produced Justice show where you can get into the chat room and do your thing. And occasionally I will take a question, or rather a comment from the chat and maybe form a question out of it. But please, ma'am, please, sir, do not use the chat room to ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller, because it just simply cannot happen that way. The last way is you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and I will try to get you on. Okay. I believe that is it. There was a comment about policemen, and looking at the chat room, I guess all across this nation, the black police officers have been, not very many of them have had a good example. Fish Hat Test Felt number 7, of course, you know I just butchered your name, had this about the word in the word guide, page 312, called race buffering. For those of you who do not have the word guide, make sure that you get that along with the other books at ProduceJustice.com. This is why we have this. Anyway, it said that race buffering is the practice by white supremacist racists of using substantial numbers of non-white people as, quote, buffers, blockers, barriers, etc., between themselves and other non-white people. The white supremacist racists do this in order to produce conflict and confusion between non-white people. This form of refined racism is specifically designed to allow white supremacist racists to do great harm to some non-white people, greater harm to most non-white people, and to blame all non-white people for all of the harm that was done. Yeah. That's in the Word Guide. Thank you. Page 312 for those of you who have it. For those of you who don't have the Word Guide, make sure you get that by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Okay, we're going back down to Houston, who's representing. I don't know if Bonita is a member of the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, but however, she's up next. Okay, Bonita, get ready. Here we go. Let me get this right over here. Okay, Bonita, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, but there's something in the background that's kind of jacking it up a little bit.
Okay. Yes, I called on my other phone, and they told me the same thing, that I was being charged a cent per minute, and then when I went online to connect with no cost, there was no recording with that. So just putting that input in while you guys do your research.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. My question is this. What if, Mr. Fuller, my question for you is, what if your hypothesis is wrong in trying to figure out what appears to be a race problem? Based on some of the information that I have heard on the show, it sounds to me like it may be more about groups being able to collaborate around shared interests effectively. And it does seem, it looks on the surface that it's about race, but what if there is a difference in thinking and processing that groups of people are able to do to create allies among themselves that have nothing to do with color, but possibly understanding the power of collaboration, because human beings can come together around whatever they want to. So what if your hypothesis is wrong? So that's my question to you, that they're smarter or it's a race problem.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
I would go straight to page 171, 172. Those wants. Every creature on the planet in a known universe wants something every second. A bird on top of a building wants to fly from the top of that building to the branch of a tree 6 blocks away. How do you know that's what the bird wanted to do? Because that's what the bird did. It left the top of the building and went 6 blocks away and landed among the leaves of a tree that was 6 blocks away. Why did the bird want to do that? That's the next question. Because it wanted to. Well, why did it want to? Because it had a plan. And the bird carried out the plan. By taking wings, the bird had wings, and it went from where it was to another place. Then the bottom line was what? The bird at that time, apparently, using logic, why did the bird do that? Because the bird thought that the result of flying from the top of the building to that tree 6 blocks away would be more constructive than where it was. Now you might say, well, why did the bird figure that that would be more constructive? You have to ask the bird. or figure it out by being what they call bird watcher. You watch it long enough, you might figure it out by asking that question. Why did that bird take off and leave the top of that building and go 6 blocks away and landed on a limb on that tree? That's what the bird did. The bird had a reason. The bird didn't ask me if I'm looking at it. The bird just did it. But the bird knows why. So, yeah, this is between me and me. It ain't got nothing to do with you. So in answer to the question, find out, if you're talking about racism, and that's what this program is all about, if there's a white person involved or a non-white person involved or just people involved in general, find out what everybody wants to do. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. Most likely. The record shows that. You have to figure out what everybody wants and what everybody doesn't want, because all creatures, if they're reasonably conscious, want something from one minute to the next. And if you deter anybody from getting what it is they want, there's going to be a problem. So you have to find out, if you're on a job or anything like that, just ask the people in the room if you're having a meeting. Well, Mr. Graham, what do you want at this meeting? Do you have anything on your mind? Just like we do on this program. What's on your mind? Something is on the average person's mind, and it's going to be in the form of something that they want. So when people don't know what other people want and what they don't want, there's going to always be a problem. That's why it's important. The whole thing about the code and interacting with people is about find out what the person wants and what the person doesn't want, because every creature wants something and they don't want something every minute of every day. And the best way to find out is to have them say what they want. And say, yeah, but it might hurt my feelings what they want. Well, then that's how you get started, so that nobody's feelings get hurt and all like that. And you do that through the process of finding out. That's the first thing you got to do, or you're going to have continuous problems. As long as somebody wants something and they're not getting it, and so you got problems.
You got problems.
If they're around you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's the same with you yourself. What is it you want? Sometimes people will say, what? I don't know what I want. Oh, okay. Well, what do you think you want? What do you think you might want? I don't know. Tell me what I want. See, well, I'll make some suggestions. And now that you ask me, to do something you want me to do. Tell you what you want.
Okay.
We can straighten it all out, folks. I'm talking to the entire world now, including all the white people. Just say what you want. Speak up. Well, I don't think these black people want to hear what I want. I want to hear it. Because we're not going to straighten anything out without hearing what everybody wants and why they want it.
And why they want it.
We can get into it just by questions and answers, but we definitely have to know what everybody wants.
Okay. All right, Bonita and Houston, thank you very much for your call. Queen Mahat from the Gmail said this. Greetings, everyone. I have a VGQ and a question. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for producing the original code book and the top of page 24. To live code, I have to plan, use the words to reveal truth, have an unconditional state of the spirit, live truth, balance, do what I say what I do. Answering the 4 wants, I start with self-inquiry, quest for knowledge of self. More is said about this at ProduceJusticeRadioStation.com. Now, Mr. Fuller, how should the individual be thinking about the top of page 24 in the original code? And I have turned to page 24 in the original code, and it says this. Basic problems among the people of all the known universe. Lack of knowledge and understanding of the reason for existence and or for non-existence. And number 2, racism, white supremacy. Mr. Fuller?
It's self-explanatory. So you just repeat it again until it sinks in. Now, it's either true or false. These are statements that are made, right? They're not questions. Because I'm not looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it. Go ahead.
And are they statements or questions?
Well, under number 2, these are, I guess, statements. It said the lack of knowledge and understanding of the reason for the existence and or for the or non-existence. And then number 2 says racism, which white supremacy. Now, when I first read that, I thought of something that you say every program that you and I have ever been with, including but not limited to what you stated today, what you always say, even at the beginning of the book. You clearly state this. If you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything you understand will only confuse you.
Yes. And that's just a reiteration. It sounds like of the same thing.
Exactly.
Which I do that throughout the book.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to repeat things in a different way in order for people to understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I do a lot of that in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. I say the same thing over and over again on different pages in a different way, but I'm saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I found out from experience that repetition sometimes helps people to understand something better.
Yes.
Particularly if you do it in a different way than the way that you did it before, but you did the same thing. Like getting to a destination, but you go by a different road.
Yes, sir. Okay. Hang in there, Squaw. I'm going to get to you. Okay, Mr. Fuller, I'm going to use this as a segue to go right into the book, since this person referenced the book, and in particular that page. And then, of course, the statement that you just made and the reiteration of that statement throughout the whole book, solving the problem, even this morning, solving the race problem. Tell us about how it is important to have this book so that you could understand, what's going on, to be codified.
Well, you can't solve any major problem without solving the race problem. That's
exactly
the premise. Mm-hmm. Now, that's either true or false. But I say it's true because the race problem, what is called the race problem, conflict between people who are classified as white and people who are classified as non-white and or people of color in every area of activity economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, you have conflict between white people and non-white people in all of these areas of activity. And you can't straighten out any of these areas of activity, starting with economics, alphabetical order, and then education, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, without solving the race problem. Solving what? The conflicts. Well, what are the conflicts? Well, they're right in your face. Anything in economics, meaning the use of time and energy, you got conflict between people who are classified as white and people who are classified as non-white. In everything that has to do with economics, including money and all this. You got a money problem. No, you have a race problem. And that causes the money problem. Money is just lying there. I mean, it's not bothering anybody. So it's how it's moved around. And if you're talking about what real economics is, the use of time and energy, how do white people use their time? How do non-white people use their time? And do they use time and energy in such a way that they have clashes with each other in any way or form? Or is there a lack of money on somebody's part? Because money is used to take up people's time and energy.
Yes, sir.
That's a vehicle for doing it. So that's a question. And if there's conflict, it means you have to talk about it in order to resolve that conflict. Otherwise, you're going to keep having the problem. At some point, you got to talk. You might fight before the talk, but you try to eliminate that as much as you possibly can. Bloodshed, like they say in the gangster world, in The Godfather, every now and then you got to have bloodshed, because the white supremacists believe in settling things with bloodshed. And non-white people should more and more think in terms of, well, we have a lot of that, but it doesn't seem like it's helping. See, so maybe we should learn how to talk better than trying to learn how to fight, because we lose most of the fights, if not all. Otherwise, we wouldn't still have white supremacy. That's logical, and that's obvious. So fighting each other and fighting the white supremacists forever apparently is not a solution. We have to learn how to talk. Find out, and when you talk, find out what everybody wants and what everybody doesn't want. It's just that simple. But you got to be honest with it. You know, sit down at the table and say, "No, don't start telling no lies. Just tell me what you really want." Because see, we have a tendency to worship lies in one form or another. Just tell the truth. White people tell the truth about what they want, what they don't want.
Okay.
Well, I don't like to be around black people. I don't care what the reason is. Is that the truth? Yeah, that's the truth. I just don't like to be around black people. It's just something in me that tells me I'd rather not even look at them. Well, say that, and we can work something out. Yeah, how about that? We can work something out if that's what's bothering you. But everything else is okay. The money is okay and all like that. Hey, I mean, you know, hey, we can make some. I'll help you make some arrangements. Well, you don't have to look at me. That's not no requirement. I mean, you know, somebody might get mad about it, but I ain't. So let's talk about it. Okay?
All right.
And we might be surprised that a whole lot of white people say, yeah, well, that was it. I just, I don't like to look at black people all day. I just like to look at maybe one or two of them every now and then. Okay. I mean, the world is a big place. I think we can work that out. As long as you're comfortable and I'm comfortable, what's the beef?
Okay. Before we move on, come on, Mr. Bobby. All right, Mr. Fuller, before we move on, have you ever heard of the term the Southern Strategy or a Dixiecrat?
May have heard it, but I've forgotten it completely.
Okay,
I know about Dixiecrats.
You know about the Dixiecrats. Okay, that's good. That's good enough. That's good enough right there. For the people in the chat room, check out the Southern Strategy and see if it's not in place and going on right now. It's supposed to have been dead. Yeah, Lee Atwater. Those are hints. SWA, L.A., left coast. Hope you're okay during all that weather out there. We got you in, Flood. We got you in, SWA. Do your thing.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Neely Flagier.
Yes, sir.
Flagier, what do you think is going to take for an effective number of non-white people to begin to focus on the serious task of solving the racism instead of focusing on very, very stupid activities we find ourselves doing most of the time?
Say that again?
What do you think is going to take for an effective number of non-white people to focus on the serious task of solving the race problem instead of focusing on the stupid activities we find ourselves doing most of the time?
Well, if I understand the question, the white supremacists, as long as they want to be white supremacists, the problem is going to dominate the planet. As long as this is what we're talking about, that word again, that four-letter word, want. A white person who wants to be a white supremacist. Well, they're smart enough to be that because they're proving that. Now, as long as they want that as the world government, that's what we're going to have until the non-white people decide they're definitely not going to have that type of government anymore and be serious about it and be codified, because that's the only way you can do it. What we're doing now isn't working. So it means, logically speaking, we have to try something different.
Yeah,
a whole lot of things different. I say we have to take the codified route. Now, the white supremacists can say that I'd rather have a system of justice. Then they know how to do that, because they know how they brought this system of racism about. So they can dismantle it overnight and replace it with something better. And that something better would be a system of justice.
Yes,
which
sir.
means what? Guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Yes, sir.
Now, this should be the goal of every person everywhere on the planet right this minute, in every area of activity. And then the world will be the type of place that it ought to have been in the first place. But as long as you have racism as the priority government of the planet, just be ready to put up with a whole lot of misery. Because it's not working.
It's not working. Before we go to break, and thank you, Swab. Before we go to break, Mr. Fuller, you just said it. I was thinking it, and I was going to say it if you didn't say it. But you use that word justice. Before we go to break, can you explain to the whole in the entire planet that is listening what justice really, or your compensatory definition of justice?
Yes, sir. It's just two parts, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. If you have anybody being mistreated, you don't have justice. And it's impossible to have justice and white supremacy on the same planet at the same time. That is impossible. Justice doesn't exist. It cannot exist in a system of racism, because racism is what? Guaranteeing that people are mistreated and guaranteeing that people who need help the most are not going to get it.
Yes, sir.
So you can't have justice and racism in the same universe at the same time. It just is not going to happen, ever. You have to get rid of the system of white supremacy.
Have to.
You can't have both in the same universe at the same time. It doesn't work.
Have to. Thank you.
But now the other part is guaranteeing that the first part, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and the other part, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Underline, most constructive. It has to be constructive help, not just any kind of old raggedy help. Most constructive. Okay. Top of the line.
Black Jesus said, how can you guarantee that? How do you guarantee that?
Well, you've got to get rid of a system of racism first. Racism is the biggest system of mistreatment of people. And the racists brag about it. They bragged about killing people who had color in their skin. Only good Indian is a dead one. The only good Negro is a dead one. That's a common expression, and laughing about it, and writing songs about it, and making movies about it. Kill the Indians. and then telling black people, while I'm killing you, you kill Indians. Yeah, pony soldiers.
All right.
Yeah. We're going to send you to kill some Indians while I'm killing you. And you should be bragging about it with your Negro self, with your black mind.
All righty. Got to leave it there. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And we do appreciate this as we get ready to go into the last half an hour of the show. To get in contact with us the last half an hour, thank you for the music. All you have to do is dial 516-453-9921. You have a question, press the number 1 button. You'll get in line. First-time caller, do the same thing. Just give your name to the person who answers the phone. I call it the call screener, but it might be somebody else. But give them your name. Tell them you are a first-time call screener. First-time call screener. First-time caller. And then we'll expedite you into a place where your question can be heard. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on programs. The program programs. Then a menu will come up and it has shows on it. You want the Produce Justice show. You get that. You click on that, and then when you do that, that chat room becomes available to you. And then you can ask your questions. And I'm going to tell you right now, many of the chatters are very, very observant and follow the rules, are intelligent, and ask very provocative questions. And some of them have just answered what the Southern strategy is all about. Can't you see it now? Can't you see? Can't you see? Anyway, books and materials that we've been mentioning about, and some people have referred to books, particularly the original book can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. All the books are in, and you need that, including the word guide, which is included in there. You have the 2016 edition, which is an updated version of the original book, which is 1984. Is that correct, Mr. Fuller?
That's correct.
Okay. You can get all those. As a matter of fact, go ahead, Mr. Fuller. Speak about that for a moment.
Yes, you can get it by going to producejustice.com. And it's just, basically, it's 2 volumes if you don't include the original volume, because the 2016 edition, and you'll see it on that website, producejustice.com, the 2016 edition is an updated edition of the original edition. And how can you tell the difference? By looking, you can look at the cover. It's a computer design on the original edition, 1984. But the 2016 edition doesn't have that design on it, but it has most of the material that is in the 1984 edition, so you don't get confused. Now, some people like the original edition. It's a thinner book. It's a whole lot more material in the 2016 edition, but some people said they liked the original better because I was a better writer. And I guess that's true, because I've had a number of people say so. And then there's the actual, another addition to the 2016 edition. Basically, it's the same book, but it would be too cumbersome to carry around. So I had to make it in 2 volumes, and that's the word guide, showing you how to use words, how not to use words, and what questions to ask when other people use these words.
How many electoral votes does the Southern state have?
And you can get, you'll see it when you go to producejustice.com. You'll see what and it should be, I haven't looked at that site lately, but it should be a description of what each one of the volumes is about, so that you don't get confused about it. But if you're getting the one edition, if you get the 2016 edition, that's the latest updated edition of the 1984 edition. And the 2010 word guide is just an extension, really, of the 2016 edition. I'm going to say that again. The word guide, and it has that on the cover, Compensatory Codified Word Guide, is an extension, just like it's the same book, of the 2016 updated edition of the 1984 edition.
Now, you've made it very clear
some people,
that...
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You've made it very clear that the word guide is not a dictionary, correct?
Yes. And a lot of people say, well, I look for a word and it's not in there. There's millions of words that are not in there. If you start talking about all the varieties of the English language, that's why I call it a word guide, not a dictionary. And even dictionaries, most dictionaries are greatly abbreviated. You look at a lot of dictionaries and you won't find words. You'll find words in some, you won't find in others. If you go to a library or a place where they have every type of dictionary you can name, you might find some dictionaries in the English language that are so big, I mean in print, that you have to wheel them around on a sturdy steel cart. I mean, they're heavy. They'll break your back trying to lift them because they cover so many words in the English language that you have to have a wheel cart in order to find many of the words. Some of them obsolete, they say. They label them as that, words that are not even in use anymore.
Yes.
Yes. And so sometimes they have words or dictionaries that have nothing but words that are no longer in use, or used very seldom, or used within a certain context. And they will label them as such. So it's the same way with the volume that I have that's an addition to the 2016 basic volume. And that's just a word guide so that you have some idea about how words are used, because the white supremacists are the master of words. And so we should be very aware of that.
Okay.
And we should have words. We will use the same English language and give them definitions that will work against the system of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what the word guide is for.
Okay.
For justice against racism.
All righty. There you have it, right there. There you have it. You can get the books, including the word guide, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Okay, let's pilot this bad boy into, what is that, KNBA? No. KBNA? That would be Nashville for those who fly. And that means you, Anthony. Yeah, that means you. Nashville, ready? Here we go. Anthony, good morning and welcome to the program. What's your question?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. I have a VGQ and a quick question. You can take me off the air, Mr. Bobby. Mr. Fuller, I think you're mistaken as far as, on account of asking white people what's the solution to the race problem, because for a while now they have really said that the solution is, intact families and not talking about, pretty much telling black people to forget about racism and, to establish traditional families and stuff. So they pretty much laid out a whole bunch of solutions, even though these solutions are not constructive at all. But they've pretty much said these are the solutions, and we're not actually wanting to do these things. And they're saying, pretty much they're saying like, they've came up with the solutions, but we just don't want to do that, and we're just blaming racism for everything. So I just want to ask you, in your time of existence, has there ever been a time that you noticed? Has there been a time in which white people collectively had admiration or spoke highly of black people collectively? Has there ever been a time in your life where you actually heard white people say that we were actually moving up the ladder of being constructive people?
Okay, Mr. Fuller.
Generally speaking, all over the years, most white people have not made clear verbally, it's been my experience, don't talk to black people about anything. And it's clear to me that it's logical that they wouldn't. Why? Because talking to black people about what? In order to do what? Most white people I have encountered, the only time they are willing to talk to black people is when they want something that's going to benefit them. And that's it. And the way they usually do that is when they talk, they just say, what they would like to see done on the part of black people. They don't talk about themselves at all. They just let black people know what they want done. And outside of that, they'd rather not talk at all. Why? For a logical reason in the system of white supremacy. Talk to a black person about what? And I've asked that question because that's a logical question. Why would any, the question is, according to the code, why would any white person want to so-called socialize with a black person? Period. What is there to be gained? In the system of white supremacy, the average white person say everything that I need or want or think that I need or want from black people, I already get it. That's already set up. So what I need to talk to them for? They're socializing each other, if you can call it that, all that foolishness that they do with each other, whole bunch of stupid stuff. That's all they're really good at. So me, as a white person, white woman, white man, and I actually heard one time back in the 1950s, a white person actually remark on that. I mean, that jumped right out at me because it was so accurate. It was a black male walking with a white female having a conversation. And I overheard a white man who saw them walking side by side, talking to each other. And he said to another white man, it looks like she could find somebody better, I guess somebody white, to talk to than talk to him. Now, apparently he didn't even know the people individually, but he was saying, what would a white woman have to do talking to a black male about anything when everybody knows that anybody with any sense won't ever talk to no black person about nothing? Because that was the prevailing, I mean, in every circumstance then. It's modified just a little bit now, but basically that question can be asked now. We're still talking about questions and answers, and every question has an answer. And so I asked myself, when I overheard them saying that, yeah, why would she? Talk to him about what? What is it that he knows that's worth hearing, that he can't get from just about any place? Because black people don't have a reputation nowhere in the world, among the white world, for ever saying anything that's worth listening to. You're going to talk to one of them creatures about anything that's really serious? Are you serious? Having a conversation with one of them things? How can you have a conversation with them? I mean, what do they know that's worth listening to? Unless you're half crazy or crazy, period. And that's the prevailing. I think in answering the question, if I'm doing that, that's the prevailing philosophy today. And I will ask that question. Why would any white person want to talk to Neely Fuller right this minute in the year 2023 about anything? And I'm being honest and answering that question from my perspective.
Okay.
I don't know why any white person will want to talk to me about anything right now in 2023. unless he has something that shouldn't be part of his plan in mind, or nobody's plan. In other words, he's not, as you might say in this colloquial language, common language, he wants to talk to me. He got something in mind that's no good.
Already, no good.
It's something he wants to talk to me about. Talk to me about what? For what? Anything he wants to learn, he can learn it from millions of white folks that he already knows, takes for granted, and get the correct answers. If there's some questions involved.
Okay. All right. Anthony, Nashville, thank you for your call. Let's go to Wheaton, Maryland. Well, that sounds like money. AP, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. I'd like to make a VGQ comment and form it in a way of a question so that you can probably clarify and respond to the question, or VGQ. First of all, the one comment is that, Mr. Fuller, you've said...
Hello?
I'm here.
Yes. Mr. Fuller, you have said in the past at times that, and I'd like for you to clarify, why do you feel or why do you say that white people are the only ones really qualified to identify another white person as a white supremacist?
Because they say so and can't be overruled. That's what white supremacy means.
Well, can I say this?
So far, they have not been overruled on that. They say, I say it's a very codified from the white supremacist view, because I said so.
The reason why I asked the question, Mr. Fuller, or say so, make a statement like that is that if it's known from other whites, let's say through television, through lawyers, courtroom settings, or whatever, and they've already identified such known persons as being white, wouldn't we know as the public know also that they are white supremacists, and we can call them that because they've been identified as so?
Well, where's your proof?
The proof is let's say watching a program, or being in a courtroom setting, and the audience is of multicolors, many people that would know and identify the person as a white supremacist based on their actions, based on what they've done, based on proof, based on evidence, that others can also call them that because they've been identified as that. That's part of the proof. I can understand where you're saying that it's the confirmation that may come from them, but why does it have to only be that they're the only ones that can identify them as such as being a white supremacist? Then I have another point, another question I'd like to ask.
No, there's no way for me to prove that a white supremacist is a white supremacist, because I'm a prisoner of war of the system of white supremacy. I was born a prisoner of war, and a prisoner of war in a prison camp, which is what the whole world is if you're black, and the prison masters are white, because they run the entire planet when it comes to anybody of color. It doesn't make any difference what I say about anything, which is what I just finished talking about. What I say doesn't count to the white supremacists, and they can tell me that and prove it. I say, well, it does count, and they say, prove it. Prove it. Prove it, boy. Prove it.
I have an understanding of that. I just want to
prove it. You're going to have to prove it to me. I don't have to prove nothing to you, Neely Fuller. That's what a white supremacist can say to me all day long. and back it up. Say, who's going to back you up except somebody white? Boy.
I understand that now. The other point I'd like to say is in watching commercials, to piggyback on something that you have said before that makes a lot of sense, and certainly I understand it and agree with you, is watching commercials and commercialism in the system of racism, white supremacy, which is how you identify as the refined white supremacist who does such things. I think that I'd like for you to clarify a little bit of how they use commercialism to guide and shape the thinking and rhetoric and propaganda that they use in shaping the minds of the public, people of color and non-whites, and also codified, in my opinion, with white people and what they do, of using, let's say, the LGBTQ commercialism to shape the minds of people, to make people feel that the only black people that are acceptable black people are such people that are LGBTQ or other black people, people of color who act white.
Yes, in simple terms.
So that they,
in simple terms, according to the code, everything that a white supremacist does is to make white supremacists stronger. Yep. That's how they got the label, white supremacists. Supreme. Every move that they make in economics, in education, they're not going to do nothing in education that's not going to make white supremacists stronger. Period. In entertainment, any way that they entertain themselves is going to make white supremacists stronger. Unlike black people, when we write songs, the white supremacists write songs that make white supremacists stronger. We might not have noticed it, but black people just sit down and write a song. And a lot of it is about doing damage to each other. But we just want to, But see, I'm talking about the white supremacists now. In the third area of activity, entertainment. Write a play. It's going to make white supremacists stronger one way or another. It's not going to make white supremacy weaker. Write a script for anything, fiction, non-fiction, whatever. When they kill each other, directly and indirectly, it's about making the system of white supremacy stronger.
Stronger.
All of the classics.
Okay.
And that's politics, religion, sex for sure. Make black people weaker in mind and body, and the white supremacists stronger, no matter how it looks on the surface.
Mm-hmm. All righty. With that, we got to leave it there because we have run out of time. So we'd like to thank everybody for your calls and what's been going on in the chat room for the most part. And don't forget to get the books by going to producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, we have a minute left, so that minute goes to you.
Here again, get the books first and try to make some kind of sense of them. I'm not the best writer in the world. In fact, I'm a very, very poor writer by my own measure. The books are a disaster by my own measure. They could have been written much better. But try to get what you can out of it, and with programs like this, and try to get some fundamentals that you can understand.
Okay.
Go to producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com. Okay, we'll try to do better. We made a lot of mistakes, but we'll try to do better the next time. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, all the callers. Everybody have a good week, and be on code, Produce Justice. Thank you.